Hey guys, I wanted to make this video something that I've been looking at, and it's really, really awesome. So it's about Paul the Apostle, and notice what happened here. We're gonna skip around a couple verses. Let's look at Romans 16:25 and 26, and look what it says. It says, "Now to him that is of power to establish you according to my gospel, in the preaching of Jesus Christ, according to the revelation of the mystery, which was kept secret since the world began, but now is made manifest." Okay, now it's made manifest. "And by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the everlasting God, made known to all nations for the obedience of faith." Okay, you guys, so God chose Paul. Okay, and Paul was a very wicked man. Okay, but God chose Paul to learn the true gospel, to learn the Bible from the Old Testament, to learn the truth, and then to present that to the whole world. Okay, this is what he wrote 14 of the 27 books of the New Testament, okay? Over half. Because God chose him for this purpose, and he revealed this mystery to him. And we're going to look at a couple verses. This is an amazing thing. He was a Pharisee of the law, and he was a very well-educated, he was a Hebrew of the Hebrews, okay? A great Hebrew. This guy would have supposedly known the whole scriptures, right? But you guys, the thing is he didn't know anything. This is proof that Satan had the entire Jewish nation deceived, and they were no longer studying the Bible. They were not getting revelation from God. They were just teaching traditions and false doctrine, and this was a huge problem. Okay, and this is why the gospel message was taken from the Jews. It was taken from them in 34 AD and given to the Gentiles, okay, to anybody that's a Gentile. Okay, I mean, this is the Jewish nation. Today it's a dead nation, okay? The nation as a whole, the literal nation, okay? So we're going to look at this. Let's look in verses. Let's go to Galatians. Let's go to Galatians 1:11. We're going to look at this. Alright, it says, "But I certify you, brethren, that the gospel which was preached of me is not after man. For I neither received it of man, neither was I taught it." You guys catching this? He did not receive it from any man that was on the earth, and he was not taught it by anybody on the earth, but by the revelation of Jesus Christ. Jesus revealed to him all the truth, you guys. So Paul must have had to unlearn probably most of what he thought he knew about God. He had to unlearn probably almost everything. Okay. All right, so let's continue. Then it says, "For you have heard of my conversation in times past in the Jews' religion." See how he's calling out the Jews' religion, because the Jews' religion was not God's kingdom. It was the Jews' religion. It was a made-up fantasy fairy tale. It had nothing to do with God. So sad, because these were God's people that he chose to take the gospel to the world, and they just didn't do it. Okay. "How that beyond measure I persecuted the church of God and wasted it." Okay, this is Paul talking here. Now we're going to continue 4 or 5 more verses here, and this is going to get incredible. Now check this out. "For I neither received it of man, neither was I taught it." He keeps telling us this, you guys. He keeps saying that I did not receive it of a man, neither was I taught it. In no seminary classes, no university, not by any other man, but by the revelation of Jesus Christ. Okay, he makes that point. Alright, so let's continue verse 14. And look at this, and profited in the Jews' religion above many my equals in my own nation, being more exceedingly zealous of the traditions of my fathers. See what's happening? He's talking about the Jews' religion. He's pointing that out twice now, that it's not of God. It was the Jews' religion. And what he was doing, he was following the traditions of his fathers. That's huge. That's showing us that it was the traditions of men. It had nothing to do with God anymore. That's incredible. But when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace. Now check this out, you guys. To reveal his Son in me. To reveal his Son in me, that I might preach him among the heathen. Immediately I conferred not with flesh and blood. Guys, this is huge, man. He's talking about that it was revealed that Christ, the Son of God, was in him. That's the mystery. Oh man, this is fascinating. All right, let's continue. Let's look on 17. It says, notice this too, you guys, because when he was called by God, notice how God that he, and we've already established that it's been revealed. He was not taught it, and he did not receive it by other men. So you're going to notice coming up here is that when God wanted to give him the gospel, the truth of the scriptures, he did not send him to Jerusalem to be with, not even to be with the disciples. He was not sent to the disciples because they had some truth from what Jesus taught them, but much of what they understood about the Bible, it was all false doctrine, okay? Even the disciples, all right? Because you got to figure the disciples would have been raised up from their youth, being in Sabbath school and being taught the scriptures from the Pharisees, and just their whole life, the very core of their beliefs would have been false doctrine. So Paul was chosen. Now check this out. Now it says that, neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles. God didn't send them to the apostles to learn before me, but I went into Arabia and returned again unto Damascus. So he went into Arabia, you guys, for 3 years. God isolated him from everybody, especially Jerusalem and the disciples, because he had to teach him and reveal to him the truth about the scriptures. Only Paul would have had this information at this time. And then when he's done after the 3 years, God's going to bring him out of the wilderness, and he's going to come back into Jerusalem, and he's going to start preaching the truth. And you guys are going to notice something here. And then it says, then after 3 years, notice that 3 years, God was revealing the scriptures to him from the Old Testament, and probably, by dream and vision. All right, then after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter, and abode with him for 15 days. So he's coming back to preach the truth, and he goes straight to Peter, and I'm sure for those 15 days he would have been telling Peter about everything that he learned. You know what I mean? You can only imagine. But here's the key coming up, you guys. But other of the apostles saw I not, except for James, the Lord's brother. Now look at verse 20. The opening of Galatians, Paul says this, now the things which I write unto you, behold, before God, I lie not. Now why would he say that? Opening up here, God isolated him and took him away from the apostles, away from Jerusalem, away from the Jews for 3 years to teach him correct doctrine, because it was all wrong. It was almost all wrong. Even the disciples, they had so much false doctrine in them. God chose one man to teach the entire truth of the scriptures, and then he used Paul to take it to the whole world. That's the disciples. He would have taught everybody. Okay, he was the only man on the earth at that time to go through this experience. That's fascinating. And he opens it up and he says, because he understands that many of the teachings that he's going to talk about, people have never heard before. People that have been in the scriptures and been studying their whole lives, they themselves, when they heard Paul's stuff, they're like, what? they would have been like, that's like nothing I've ever heard. I've been taught completely opposite of that. It's because Satan, you guys, has deceived everybody. He's deceived the entire world. And he deceived all the Jews, the Christians, the disciples, everybody. Okay, so he used Paul to set straight his doctrine. That's absolutely fascinating? And Paul says right here, behold, before God, I lie not. He knew he was going to have a lot of people accusing him that he was a liar and false. And you can only imagine. But now we're going to go back and look at a couple key verses here. This is absolutely, I mean, I've never heard anything like this before. Okay, let's check this out. Let's look at two verses. Let's look at 2 Corinthians 4:4. And it says, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine to them. It is Satan that is blinding the minds, you guys, of the people. And notice what else he does. 2 Corinthians 11:3. But I fear, Paul's saying this, you guys. He says, but I fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety. In the beginning, you can read that in Genesis 3. Satan deceived Eve by his subtlety. Okay, very, very slight changes, you guys. So your minds, he's talking to us, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. You guys, it's simple. There's a simplicity to Christ and the gospel of God. It's not complicated. It's not complicated at all. It's very complex. Okay, and it's an incredible thing. But there is a simplicity to it that we can all, even a child can understand. Okay? And he used Paul to bring these points out. All right, now there's a couple more, and I don't know if I have them here. Let me check here. We went over that. The gospel was taken from the Jews. We can read about that in Matthew 23:38. And Jesus says, behold, your house is left unto you desolate. Okay, the gospel was taken from the Jewish nation, and it was given to the Gentiles. Acts 13:46. It says, then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said it was necessary that the word of God should first have been spoken to you, talking to the Jews. You know, he had to give them, God gave them one final chance. And then Paul says, but seeing you put it from you, they didn't want nothing to do with the gospel of God, the real gospel. And Paul says, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life. Lo, we turn to the Gentiles. You see, that's the transition point, you guys. The gospel was taken from the Jews, and the literal nation of Israel is a dead nation today. Okay, it's a dead nation. Now they can be saved individually, okay, but as a nation, it's a dead nation. And the gospel was opened up to the entire world at this time. And he used Paul to do it. Paul was the only one. Oh, it's fascinating. All right, let's look at, there's a couple more key verses here. Let's look at 2 Peter 3:16, and we can kind of understand this. And Peter says, as also in all his epistles, talking about Paul's epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrestle, as they do with the other scriptures. So you guys, he's telling us that there are things in Paul's writings that are hard to be understood. Think about that. It's because, you guys, there's so much deception and deceit that when you hear the truth of the gospel, the real truth of the Bible, it's unlike anything we've ever heard. And so most people just don't want to accept it. They're like, well, you know, we haven't heard nothing like that before. So, and we know that God revealed it to Paul and rose up Paul to give it to the entire world. So, It's absolutely fascinating. I never knew this stuff was in the scriptures, you guys. Okay, now, as we're talking about the mystery, let's look at Colossians 1:26. And it says, even the mystery which has been hid from the ages and from generations, but now is made manifest to his saints, to whom God would make known what is the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles. Notice what this mystery is, you guys, among the Gentiles. It's been hidden up until the cross, up until the New Testament times. The mystery among the Gentiles is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Remember Paul was just talking about how it was revealed to him that the Son was in him? That's what it is, you guys. It's Christ. Christ is in you. When you're born again, it is Jesus that comes inside of you, you guys, to live. Okay? It's not a third being. It's him by the Spirit, by his Spirit. That's how he does it. That's the mystery. That's what he was teaching everybody. Oh, just blow you away, you know. Just unbelievable. Okay, let's look at Acts 9:15. Actually, let's look at 9:11 first. If you look at 9:11, this story, you guys, this is where Saul, after Saul was blinded when he met Jesus on the road to Damascus, Ananias was instructed by God to go see him. Check this out. And the Lord said unto him, arise and go into the street, which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth, and has seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him that he might receive his sight. So God's telling this to Ananias, and then he gave a vision to Paul, let him know what's going on. So he's expecting Ananias to come, right? Now listen to this. See, this is how the people were back then, you guys. He was informing God, like, this is probably not a good idea, Lord. You gotta, this is not gonna work. Because listen, look at what he says. He says, then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man, talking about Saul of Tarsus. Everybody was scared of Saul because he was hunting down the Christians, you guys, to kill them and to bind them and take them back to the chief priests. I mean, everybody was scared of this man. He was a terrible. And Ananias is telling God this, like God don't know. You know what I mean? It's so funny. And he says, how much evil has he has done to thy saints at Jerusalem? Like the Lord don't know, you know? And then he says, and here he has authority from the chief priests to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord said unto him, look what Christ says to him. He says, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. Notice it's the Gentiles first. But he was a chosen vessel, you guys. God, he met Christ on the way, and it transformed his life, and he understood the truth. And then God took him into the wilderness for 3 years, into Arabia, to teach him the true scriptures. This was a man that thought he knew all the scriptures, but he knew nothing. He was deceived on almost everything. So, man, I can't believe it. It's just incredible. So I'm going to stop the video here, you guys. I just wanted to cover those couple points. There's a lot more to this. So I'm going to make some more videos, but I had to get that out to share that with somebody, because I think it's incredible, man. So, okay. All right. God bless you guys, and I will see you guys soon.